Hi folks, John Cordisco back with another great chess video for you. This is a game that was played today at Norway Chess 2013 round 4 between my buddy Nakamura from the United States and Anand from India, the current world champion. Fishy's rated number 6 in the world and Hikaru is number 7 in the world. Fishy's rated 2783 and Hikaru's rated 2775. Anyway, it's a really good game. It's a really low pay. I'm not going to spoil it to say who won, so let's get to it. Fishy starts with e4, e5, f3, knight to c6, bishop b5, a6, typical real low pay stuff. Bishop a4. Some people play the exchange. Instead of bishop to a4, they play bishop takes, d takes, castle, bishop g4. After bishop a4, black played knight to f6. Castles by white, pretty much standard stuff. b5, chasing off the light squared bishop. And now you can see that light squared bishop is bearing down on f7, which is usually, it's like f2 on the white side. It's a pretty vulnerable spot, at least temporarily. Bishop to c5, and of course, Hikaru's doing the same thing. He's bearing down on the king side as well. c3, that does a couple of things. It helps control the b4 square and also leaves an escape square for the bishop in case black tries to push his pawns. d6, which we all can see, house with a light squared bishop. d4 by white. b6, he moves back. But still, my arrow's a little off there, but he still has the hitting the f2 square. Bishop e3, blocking that up and protecting the d4 pawn. Castles by black. If, say, knight took e4, which looked free, bishop to d5, bishop to b7, and bishop takes e4. Would have been a big advantage, of course, for white, has been up a piece. Usually, as a rule, what I do is I leave my Fritz computer, Fritz 13, and I have it off the screen just to get an idea where it stands. Right now it's basically 0.01, so we'll say dead even. Black has equalized on move 9, which is pretty good for Hikaru. I mean, Vishy is the world champion. He's a great player. But also, too, I don't show it because I think people should try to analyze the game themselves. You know, plus if they want to pause the video and analyze, that's fine too. It's probably a better idea. But it's better to analyze on your own. You learn a lot more that way. Knight b to d2. Rook to e8. This is pretty much standard stuff here. Rook to e1. Knight to a5. Of course, going c3 made that escape square for the light-colored bishop. c5. I'm not up on theory. I'm only a 1590 player. I'm under 1600, but I think that's typical Hikaru. He's trying to open up position. He's trying to go after him, trying to mix things up. D takes, queen to e2, knight to g4. Now I do this all the time too. I'll put my bishop on either d3 or e3, and the knight either goes to g4 or b4 to harass it, and I always kind of get upset. You know, nobody wants to lose their bishop for a knight, but Hikaru does, or Vishy doesn't seem to mind. Knight to f1. That's a good move as well, because if he hadn't, say the knight takes the bishop and queen takes, then the black pawn moves up with a discovery on the queen and gets basically a tempo, and I think that's a good. Black would have a nice lock on the queen side. So knight to f1 I think was a good move. Bishop to e6. Now black's looking to go c4 anyway. And I think black's got a pretty active position here. There she tries knight to g5, knight takes, f takes, knight takes. That was kind of a weird exchange, but as you can see what happened, you see the two double pawns here. I don't think they're that bad for a Carl. I think they're actually sometimes double pawns, not necessarily a bonus, but they're definitely not hurting him, I don't think. They control a lot of key squares. At this point, I think we're going to have a timeout for this message.
Where am I?
You've been in a coma for 6 months.
Who are you?
I'm your daddy. This here's your brother Earl.
Don't you worry. They're holding your job at the sewer plant.
Your sister Beulah.
I missed you.
And, of course, your wife. Oh, we had to sell one of your kidneys to help cover the bill.
You're going to have to wear a diaper.
It ain't so bad.
Hey, you're not Cletus.
Mr.
After 18, white knight takes e3, black goes c4, and he gains a lot of space. I showed by the colored squares there. That's a lot of space black gets to work with. He's got a pretty good queenside initiative. White goes queen to h5, going after the isolated e-pawn. Queen to c7 to guard it. Right now it shows about a third of a point advantage for white, so we'll say it's even. I think Carl's done pretty well up till now. Knight to g4, hitting the e-pawn again, and rook to f8. Now as you can see, the rook's on this pawn and also the bishop. It's going to be really hard to defend that, but Fishy does with rook to e2, unconnects the rooks, and rook a to d8, going right after that file. Fishy, of course, puts his rook right on d1. You can't let him have the open file. Now, if he hadn't gone rook to d1, what happens if knight takes? It would go queen to c5, king to h1, knight to c6, and that loses badly. So that free pawn isn't so free. Usually free pawns aren't. Like it goes, if it's too good to be true, it usually is. Rook takes, bishop takes, rook to d8, going right after the bishop. If instead black went queen to d6 after it, bishop to c2, knight to c6, and h3, pretty much white would have been a little bit cramped, not much, but it would have been dead even in score. After rook to d8, bishop to c2. Another thought would have been instead maybe bishop to d. Oh, that's an error. Must be my computer's making a mistake. Let's go back here. Bishop to c2, b4. C takes b. Knight to c6. Now, I just want to illustrate here. Carl's got those two isolated pawns on the e-file. And let's give you an idea what squares those two pawns control. They're not as weak as they may look. I think interesting would have been rook to d2 instead of c takes b4. We all know, of course, can't take because of the mate here. Knight would have went to c6 and bishop to a4, and that puts it white up about a pawn, so that might have been worth considering. After c takes b4, knight to c6, and you see the pawns there as I illustrated to control those key squares. Bishop to a4. Now I think maybe instead of bishop to a4, Fishy maybe ought to considered rook to d2 again. Tempting, of course, the rook to take what you can because of the mate. Knight to d4, knight to e3, c3, b takes, queen takes. And it's still an even game, but it's fairly interesting. After bishop to a4, Knight takes b4. Queen takes e5. Finally, the e-pawn falls. Now, Carl's not really interested in trading queens, and he goes to e7. Just to illustrate what would have happened if the knight took instead. It would have went knight to d3, knight takes, c takes. And that puts black almost 2 pawns to the good, even though white's a pawn ahead, so it's a losing position. So that's why queen took. Carl wasn't interested in trading queens. I think he was looking for a win in this game. It shows his kind of fighting spirit. This is a big game for him. Queen to h5 for white. Knight takes a2, getting his pawn back. And this is the first mistake from Vichy. It shows a tiny, tiny advantage currently for black. The computer suggests knight to e5. Basically, the computer also says white is still in the game after knight to e5. What he did was he played g3, and he dropped almost a point and 3/4 immediately, which is a ton for these guys. If he had went knight to e5 instead of g3, it would have went g6, and then queen to e4, with a tiny, minute advantage for black, but it would have been much better than g3. I think this part in the video, we're going to pause for this break.
Mr. Vanderberg, I'm ready to cut you a deal if you testify against the Colucci family. If you testify, we will put you in the witness protection program. No identity, no house, no job. You will disappear from the face of the earth.
Could you please point Paul Colucci out to the members of the jury? Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Williams! We'd like to welcome you as our 100,000th president of our middle phone! Mr. Williams! Smile to the camera! Smile to the camera!
Okay, folks, we're back. I think this is the beginning where Vichy starts to go a little bit wrong. I mean, these guys don't play like we do, and I don't mean the skill level. I mean, even a minor mistake can be deadly, unlike us average amateur players. We can usually compensate for inaccuracies or mistakes. These guys, you make a mistake, it could be deadly. Black goes knight to c1 check, rook to c2, attacking the knight. Knight to d3, get the knight out of there. And e5 by white. Now, what might have been interesting, instead of e5, if rook took c4, knight takes the pawn, bishop, knight takes c4, bishop takes c4, rook to d4, bishop takes a6, rook takes e4. Now, granted, that's not the greatest scenario in the world, but I think it would have worked out better than it worked out. Now he's just down the clean exchange. He's down about 2 points in score. As you can see what happened, I think that might have been a better alternative. After e5, he went rook to f8. As you can see, the rook and the bishop are bearing right down on this poor f-pawn. Vichy decided to take the c-pawn instead. Rook takes c4. Now, I think this would have happened. I think would have maybe rook to e2, queen to b7, bishop to c2, and queen to f3. Would have been a little over 2 points advantage for Hikaru. That might have been the way to go considering how it worked out. After rook takes, bishop takes f2 check. The king moves to g2. Bishop to c5 moves the bishop right out of the way. You don't want to get away your attack. And this is Vichy's second mistake. You know, chess, I see this all the time. It's mistakes are made and you lose and win, and depending on who makes the mistake. But I think who makes the last mistake is the one who usually loses. And Vichy made the last two. Now, they give it a one question mark on here in the computer. The other one they gave a G3 gave a double question mark. At this level, I guess you expect a little bit better, but nobody's perfect. It's move 33. They're probably getting close to the time control. I really didn't see the times on these games. The computer suggests one or two suggestions, one way over another. So we'll say the only suggestion the computer really suggests is king to h3. And that would be about a two and a half, almost 2.5 pawn advantage for black. He went bishop to c6, which brought his advantage up well over 3.5 points. 3 3/4 points. We all know that's more than a piece. At this level, the game is over. Now, if he had won h3, the scenario could have went rook to f5, queen to e8 check, queen takes, bishop takes, which puts it a little bit over 2 pawns advantage, but it was much better than the scenario the way it worked out. After bishop to c6, rook to f5. Now this poor queen is in a box. Queen to h4. Queen e8 doesn't really solve much. Queen takes, bishop takes, king to f8, rook takes, knight takes, and it's still bad. After queen to h4, knight to e1 check, and you can see if the king goes to h1 here, this rook comes down and mates. So you can't go king to h1. King has to go to h3, queen to f7, rook takes c5. Now I'm surprised that Vishy took the rook. He probably feels his queen can't get out anyway, but he should have at least saw this. Rook takes c5. Those of you that were wondering, instead of taking the bishop, if Vishy had played queen to d8, it would have went bishop to f8, knight to e3, rook to h5, rook to h4, g5, queen to d1, pawn takes, queen takes, pawn takes check, king takes, rook takes, king to g2, queen to f4, queen to f2, and queen takes e3, which put black up a full rook. So the other scenario, that wasn't so great either. Those of you that are wondering if the queen check would have worked again. After rook takes c5, it's about a 10-point lead right now for black. He goes rook to h5, hitting the queen, bishop to g2, rook takes the queen check, g takes, queen to f5, and this is where Vishy resigned. This is a really big winner for Hikaru. He's played Vishy in the past. I've only drawn before. I'm not sure how they did in Vikings A this year. I should say in January this year. And unfortunately for me, I had some things to do this morning, so I didn't get to watch it live. I just caught the tail end of it when he was being interviewed after the game. And then I saw the game, of course, online. And boy, he was smiling pretty good. And I don't blame him. This was a huge super tournament. I mean, to give you an idea, there's 10 people in the tournament. Carlson, Aronian, Anand, Topalov, Karyakin, Hikaru Nakamura. I believe out of the top 10 in the world, 8 of them are in the top 10 in this tournament. 8 out of 10. And there's Peter Schvidler, 6-time Russian champion, and also Hammer from Norway rounds out the field at 10. It's a huge tournament, the first super tournament in Norway. Congratulations to Hikaru. Oh, sorry Vishy, even though I like you. My buddy Hikaru got you this time. So that ends this video, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I want you to remember that if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. And I hope to see all of you in the next video. And please comment and please subscribe. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.